Good morning, everybody. My name is NickJubrey. How many, show of hands, this is their first WordCamp? Awesome. Second? More than two? All right, so we have a couple of professionals. All right, I'll be watching you guys. So I'm not going to really bore you with who I am. I'm a business owner. I'm a freelancer. This presentation is going to be the five of some of the steps that I've learned to make freelancing more successful. If you can withstand waiting till the end, I'd ask you to hold your questions till then. If you can, and you absolutely must ask during the presentation, I just ask for you to hold your questions till the end. Okay? I'm going to try to make this as least painful as possible for everyone, especially myself. I'm waiting for head nods on this one, right? Yeah, I said it. Yeah, your clients suck, right? Not all of them, okay? So I have some clients that are going to watch this. I have some really good clients, but primarily because I decided I'd stop working with crappy clients. So the main thing here is you need to be passionate about who you work with, the work that you do, why you do it, right? Because you're a freelancer after all. And you don't work for somebody because you want to be a freelancer. Well, you don't want to work with people that suck, right? So we're going to go over the offensive list here on why they actually suck. Here's the big one. You have no idea who you want for a client. I was in this boat for 4 years. You're not targeting that client, right? So then after I realized the kind of clients I wanted to have, I didn't even go after them. That was another year. So as of right now, I've saved you 5 years of your life. Keep track. You hate to say no to any work. I mean, like Christmas, the holidays are right around the corner. So you're just grabbing whatever you can, and then you realize that you got all this money and you can't do any of this work. And not to mention you didn't make any money on any of that work. You need the money. Your clients always negotiate a lower price. Yeah, that needs to stop. Scope creep. How many people have had a project change in the middle of the project? That will never happen again after today. Well, if you listen, I'm sorry, you have to listen. Yeah, you weren't listening if that's, okay. So expectations of your time, right? Like, oh, well, I just need you to do this. I just need you to do this. I just need, it sucks. They need to understand that what you do is professional work, and they need to respect that and pay you for it. So this is what you have to do. You literally have to break out of that cycle. This is how you do that. Is anybody familiar with niche markets? Does anybody work in a niche market? Nobody works in a niche market. I'm saving so many lives today. I realized, excuse me, I was losing proposals at 1/10 of what I was proposing and at 10 times what I was proposing. So that put me in the middle, and that made me nobody to my clients, right? So people either wanted the crap work and didn't want to pay any money, or they wanted agency type work. I was just the guy that built websites. So this takes some time, and I'm going to try to work you through it. You have to find something you're passionate about. You have to find something that you really love, and try to figure out a way to target that market. Be the only person in that market. Figure out, study, learn it if you don't already know about it, if there's not something you're already super passionate about. Figure out what it is and find out ways to make it profitable. Just own it. Own that market. Whatever that market is, whatever you're into, just get in it. Be that person that when somebody thinks, whatever your niche market is, let's say your niche market is craft beer. For some reason, you're super into craft beer. Anybody like craft beer? Okay, nice. So if that's it, dominate it. So when they think web design in the craft beer market, they know who they're going after. They know it's you that they're going after. This actually doesn't happen right away. It actually takes some time, like 6 years. So I'm preaching about niche markets. So do I have a niche market, right? It's like he's up there saying niche market. I have 3. So I couldn't decide on one, and I was really passionate about 3 separate things. So yeah, no, I have a niche market. I have several of them. There's supposed to be a new slide there. There it is. So here's one of them. This is a project that I'm working on, and I'm really excited for you guys to go there during the next presentation and sign up. The freelance space is a really cool project for freelancers. It's a place where you can go get information, the kind of stuff that I struggled with, like what kind of accounting software am I using, because it turns out that sending invoices in Microsoft Word is like the worst thing ever, right? So it's basically the experiences that I've learned as a freelancer, and other freelancers have learned, to go there and get some information. This is currently under construction, but I'll give you a URL at the end that you can go to get the slides to this presentation and some other information and software that I mentioned. Here's my number 2. I'm a search engine optimization consultant. It turns out I don't really like web design, but I like SEO. So this is what I love. This is my super passionate. And I use it as a consultant. I'm able to get in, I'm able to help clients. I like that kind of work. And I'm not stuck doing huge projects. Oh, and it turns out I love craft beer too. This one took me quite a while. I was actually on vacation, 2 separate vacations, doing things with beer and wine. And I was in Seneca Lake, and I realized these are the people I want to work with. These are the people that I want to do web design. I want my company to be really involved with. And if anybody's checking, it's not a WordPress site yet. It will be soon, though, I promise. Who gets paid enough money? I'm sorry. Who doesn't get paid enough money? Right. We're going to do the hourly rate debate right here. Who charges hourly? Who charges project base? Okay, I like it. So I'm even going to talk about some different kind of project bases. But the idea here is that we need to stop trading little bits of our time for little bits of other people's money, because it doesn't work out. That's a fun question, right? So in order to figure out how you need to make, there's a ton of different ways to do this. I'm going to do some rough numbers because I'm horrible at math. Let's say you need to make $75,000 a year. That seems fair, right? That's how much you need to gross. So in order to do that, let's say you have a $5,000 cost of doing business. That's about what I pay a year to do business for different softwares and the different legal fees and stuff like that. Suck out your taxes, thank you, New York State, and that's what you're left with, right? Roughly. In order to make that kind of money, you have to do at $1,000 projects or $1,000 websites, you have to do 75 a year. So I'm not really good at math, but I know that's not going to happen. You're not going to do that. And if you can do 75 websites a year at $1,000, you're not providing a very good service to your client. And you're not taking a vacation. So if you up your price to $3,000 a site, you can do way less sites, right? So you can get more money, do the same amount of work, but work with less clients. Let's increase that rate again, $5,000 a site. Now you can build 15 a year. So now you can get more money, work with less clients. You have more free time, I hope. And you don't have to worry about finding all the rest of those clients. There's a pattern, right? More money, less work that you have to do, less people that you have to go looking for. So a lot of people say, well, how do I justify charging $10,000, $15,000 for a website? That's actually not the right question. Oh, I knew that was coming up. So tell your plumber the next time your toilet's overflowing or broken, I don't like that rate. I think $250 for a service call is too high. He'll kindly pack his tools up and he'll leave because he's a professional. That's what he does. That's what his services are worth. It's the same for you. You guys are all providing a service to a client. What is your rate? What are you worth? That's what it is. See if your mechanic will fix your car for half the price. Who tells their client how awesome WordPress is? Who knows how awesome WordPress is? Okay. Everybody knows. All of us know. Well, that's why we're here, WordCamp, WordPress, right? Your clients don't care about it. Okay? I love WordPress, but it's just a content management system. It's a tool that we use as professionals who offer a service. It's a tool, just like a plumber's got a pipe wrench, right? You think, does your plumber come to your house and tell you how awesome his new rigid pipe wrench is? Your clients want to know about benefits. These are the kind of benefits they want to know. They want to know about money. They want to know what the site is going to do, not how it's going to do it. So don't sell them on WordPress. Sell them on how awesome your services are going to be when it's done, right? Conversion rates. Look at their old numbers. Compare them to what your new numbers could be. Give them some case studies. Things like that. That's what they want to know about. So these are the two types of pricing that I use. There's value-based pricing and there's tiered pricing. And this is the difference between the two of them. Value-based pricing, actually let's talk about tiered pricing first. It's a little easier. So there's a lot of psychology that goes into pricing in everything. And in tiered-based pricing you have what's called optimal pricing theory. The idea is you offer 3 different levels of service. Before you meet with your clients, you need to know what these 3 levels of service are. This involves doing work that you don't get paid for, that you're investing in your future. So this was really hard for me to figure out, to sit down, how much do I charge for this? What is this worth, right? Figure these 3 things out. You're going to have a low-priced option. You don't want to sell a low-priced option. It's got the bare bones, right? You have a high-priced option. So they consider that like your Rolex. It's got everything that you want. It's really pretty, but they might not have that in their budget. The mid-range is the one that you always want to sell. So deliver them in the way that I just delivered them to you. Nobody wants the low-priced. The high-priced is really nice, but I can't afford it. But wait, there's more, right? So you slide in. This will meet all of your goals, and it gives you massive room to grow with that client. So as their business grows, as you've helped them, because that's the idea, you built this project, you're trying to help them succeed online, you can sell them these other options that they now know that you're worth, right? So you've proven your worth to them. This will get rid of all your low ballers. It will get rid of everybody that says, hey, me and this guy's cousin that I know, we're going to build like an automotive parts place, but the trick is we're going to keep all the parts in outer space. So we need like an e-commerce and a shipping option. You're like, okay, great. So that looks like, now you know what all these look like. You know what these prices are because you've done these. That looks like a $10,000 website. That conversation just ended, right? Because you've gotten rid of the clients that aren't serious. So now instead of turning into a proposal and you wasting hours of your time drawing these kinds of things up, taking phone calls and going to meetings, you can have a, this is my wheelhouse, this is what my price range looks like. And you can end those conversations. Does anybody have those conversations that you end up like 3 hours into working with somebody just to find out it's not going to work? A couple of heads? Okay. If you don't have these problems at all and you only work with really larger companies, value-based pricing works great. And this is something that you're going to be involved with a client for a period of time. You're going to develop a relationship with them. You need to really get personal if you're going to pull off value-based pricing, because you're investing yourself into this person's business. You need to know what their goals are as a business owner. You need to know how much money they plan on making in this investment, because that's what they're doing. They're giving you money and they're investing in their business. How much money do they think they're going to make? If a client tells you that they're going to make $50,000, that's the goal for this. Asking for a fifth of that isn't a lot. If they're going to make $100,000, you're going to put a lot of work into making that work for them. You're building a relationship. That's how value-based pricing works. It's understanding what the value is for that client and charging accordingly. Automating your workflow. Who fills out new paperwork for every client? How many pieces of paper do you have? You have a lot, right? So you at least have a contract, proposal, independent contractor agreements if you use those, invoices, website completion documents, content creation documents. I have like 6 documents on top of these documents that I've kind of worked into one. Develop all those documents right now. If you don't already have them built and you're not super satisfied with all of them, take time away from your business to invest time in your business and build these documents right now. Oh, look at that. It's like it knows what I was going to say. If you need to edit these documents, this is just what I've learned. Maybe I had this backwards the whole time. But if you need to edit these documents, only edit the master document. Just keep these all centralized so they're easy to access. And only edit the master. So I would edit a contract, and then I would go find that old contract, and then I would make huge changes to that contract. That didn't work before. I want to make these. Do it to the master documents. We're totally getting to the automation part. Stick with me for a minute. So what I just skipped over was you only have to do this once. So project management was fun for us, and by fun I mean it was horrible. There was 4 different pieces of software that I ended up going through until I found one that I really, really, really liked. Everyone had something that I liked, but it was too much money, or just different features weren't there that needed to be there. Once you find something, you can use it for all your clients. You project manage at some level, whether you physically write these things down, whether you have project management software, or you just know the next step is this, the next step is this. You already do project management. So what I encourage you to do is write down all the steps that you have. Think about them. Okay, so my onboarding, I have a call. Think about the time. This is an important part of it. Think about the time that you invest in all these pieces, especially those of you that charge hourly. I just met with a client. They still haven't signed a contract. We're 5 hours in. Okay, so think about the times that you spend. Write down all the steps. Keep a master list of all the steps. And as you think of new ones, because you'll think of new ones, you'll forget pieces, add them in. Every little piece that you have to do to build a website, write it down. Then find some project management software or someone who does project management and give it a test, give it a trial run. Preload all those tasks, all those milestones, however you figure out. This takes a long time, but it's totally worth it. I'm going to show you why in just a minute. Preload all the little pieces of all those tasks in the way that it makes the most amount of sense into that software or that person. There's people that do this. You already do the same thing over and over. You want to animate it or automate it. If you can animate it, that's cool too. So, I'm telling you, you should do this, right? So here's an example of why I think that you should, if this will work, hopefully. I'm going to show you why you should be doing this. Or I'm not.
Your Wi-Fi's off.
I was really hoping to show you guys this.
Yes.
If the guest is already signed up.
I couldn't find that one actually. Oh, good.
Yes, you're on wireless.
Yeah, you gotta go to
So once this loads, I'm going to show you. Or if it's, okay, so if you really want to see this, I'll come talk to me later. But the example I was going to show you was that this literally takes. This is where I was going to sell you on it too. This literally takes a minute. I can go into my project management software. The one that I use here is Teamwork. I can lay out all the pieces, make a copy of it, and populate it as a new project. And it literally takes a minute. And I have all the files that I'm going to need for that client, the NDAs, the contracts, everything that I need. All I have to do is fill in the blanks. All the tasks are going to be in here, already automated, and the milestones. And if you work with other people, which I suggest that everybody does, and we'll get to that, it's already, all the tasks are pre-assigned to those people. So in 1 minute, I can assign to all the people that I work with the jobs that they need for every project and for myself. Has anybody ever been in this position? You thought we were paying you for this? That's a fun one. I'm going to be brutally honest, that was your fault. It's happened to me. It was my fault. You should never get to this point. The conversation should never get past the verbal conversation that this is going to cost money, right? Having those prices, having an idea of what your wheelhouse looks like, I'm a big fan of that term, knowing where you work and being able to tell somebody. I know that's awkward, it's difficult, but it's a service. This is what you do. Your mechanic and your plumber are going to tell you how much it's going to cost to fix your car, and they're going to do it like that because that's what it's going to do. They're not going to work for free. Does anybody not have a contract that they use? Okay. The benefits of a contract are the 3 Ps, I like to call them. Prevents the future headaches, gives your client an understanding of what you're going to do for them, and it protects your assets. It literally will protect your assets. Contract is not an option. You must have a contract in place. It's not an option. You must have one in place. Anybody like to be sued? Didn't think so. Have a contract. Where can you get a contract? There's a lot of places online you can get a contract. It doesn't matter where you get a contract. You can get a contract from wherever you want. It doesn't even matter what it says, as long as you have a lawyer review your contract. That's going to cost a couple of dollars. You should have a lawyer anyway. There are plenty of lawyers that will review a contract for a few $100s. And they'll tell you what needs to change and what needs to be fixed. If it comes to the point where you've pulled a contract off you know, a creative website or something like that, and there's holes in it, a lawyer is going to find those holes. So if you do this professionally and you don't want to be held liable, have a lawyer review your contract. Remember we talked about scope creep? It will no longer exist if you have a contract. Contract is going to talk about every piece of the website that you're going to do. So I had a client that we were working on a website. He was an author. And then he decided that, well, this site is going to be an e-commerce site now. Well, according to our contract, it's not an e-commerce site. At that point, that contract is no longer valid, and we're going to write a new one. There is no scope creep. Not, I'm going to add it in. Not, well, you know, I can just throw the e-commerce. I'm not going to throw the e-commerce in. That's a lot of work. I don't even do that work. I have somebody on my staff that does that work. If you write it in your contract, you will no longer have scope creep. According to our contract, is your best tool. So, does anybody work with anyone else, or are they strictly on their own? Anybody strictly on their own, doesn't have anybody else? Okay. You can do everything that's out there, but you can't do it effectively and efficiently as possible. You need to treat freelance like an agency. And this is what I mean by that. So, I worked it in, so I wouldn't talk too much about it. I run W5 Designs, that's the name of my company. There's, I think, 4, 5, up to 6 of us at any given time. I don't really care for web design. I have a designer. As a matter of fact, there's 1 to 2 people in this room that work for me on different projects as independent contractors. Because I'm not a great designer. I can design. You don't want to see that. My clients don't want to see that. They want to see really good design. So I have a really good designer. I found trustworthy people to help me make my designs, do my e-commerce, my back-end code. I'm also a bad programmer too. Find what your weaknesses are and find people that's their strength and put them in your circle. Make sure they're trustworthy people and have a contract with them also. So the question is, where do you find these types of people? I thought about this actually pretty long and hard. Maybe you would find yourself like in a conference or like a convention of like-minded people where you surround yourself with them, like you're there in like an entire day. See if you can find one of those, right? And then look to the person next to you and introduce yourself to him. Social media and networking groups also is a big part of that. I mean, it's important to have, people that you don't necessarily have to know them personally, but if you know them online, it's nice to have. So these are what kind of work can somebody do? Design, development, copy, all things I pay people to do. Accounting, graphic design. Oh, I do SEO. So pretty much everything else, I have people that I work with that do these kinds of things. So I know you're thinking it's expensive, but I mean, I have people that pay me to do their SEO too. It works both ways. This is the part that I like. If you don't want to do it, don't do it. Pay somebody else to do it. They just need to meet the other criteria. This is for the people that say, well, that sounds really expensive and I can't do that. This was actually me when I thought I could do it all. So you've already, if you were paying attention at this point in your career, you've gone through and you know every single piece that it takes to develop one of your web projects. You know every step and every piece. You've already done it because you were listening a couple of slides ago. Now cost it out for a freelancer to do some of it. Ask around. Find yourself at a conference of like-minded people. What do you charge for these kinds of things? What would you charge me for these kinds of things? Don't be afraid to talk about money. And now I don't mean the whole project. I mean, I'm not talking about outsourcing the entire thing. But does it make sense financially? Does it make sense time-wise? If I can do something and it takes me 3 hours, and somebody else can do it and it takes them a half hour, well, that just saved me 3 hours and only cost me a half an hour of somebody else's pay. Otherwise, I just spent 3 hours of something that I could be working on making money on. Apparently, Google Chrome's trying to do a lot of bad things today. We'll see what happens now. So, figure out what those costs are, add it to your proposal. Mark it up. Mark your proposal up. If you can now do e-commerce and you couldn't before, doesn't that make you more of a professional? Doesn't that make you more experienced? Well, I would rather send my car to a mechanic who's going to charge me $100 an hour than the guy who's going to charge me $25 an hour because this guy knows his stuff, right? So you're adding that to your portfolio of tools. So I didn't know how this slide particularly was going to work. Does anybody know Dr. Tom Denham? Nice. People. Those of you who don't know him don't network enough. I get to say that. Networking beats not working. This is his thing. Anytime you see Tom Denham, and if you go to any networking events, you usually see Dr. Tom Denham. This is a really good point. And I don't like networking, by the way. But you have to keep up appearances. This is a business. If you don't get out there, people aren't going to come to your door knocking on it, right? Because we are freelancers. We run small companies. A lot of us don't even have storefronts to go to. People aren't going to come to us. We need to go find them. But this is a business. You need to keep your profiles professional. If your LinkedIn picture is a selfie in the car, change it. It's a professional network, right? So keep them uniform and keep them professional. If your Twitter picture is an egg, you should change that also. I think that kind of goes without saying. This is for all your web presence. If it's a public web presence, then it needs to be uniform across the board. How hard is it? If you Google Nick Jubrey, you will find the whole first page is just my social media accounts, right? And I'm sure if you look really hard, you'll find something wrong. I'm not eating my own medicine, but that's the point. You have to, if it's private, it's one thing. If it's public, it's another. Get involved with something online. Some kind of a network. This is easy. Work it into your day. Schedule it in. A Facebook group, a LinkedIn group, a Quora group. I'm actually on the second and the last. Participate. Give something of some kind of a value. You're networking. People will see you as a professional. If you're answering questions, you're talking to people, it helps significantly. I don't like this. This is, you have to get out and meet people. That's what it comes down to. Unless you have somebody else doing that, and you can pay somebody to go network for you. But otherwise, you need to get out and network. Meetup.com, here's a little shameless plug, Meetup.com. There is a WordPress group. You could be in that. There are tons of different groups on Meetup that you could get involved in. And if you find yourself in a position where you're in like a conference of like-minded people, I encourage you to turn to the person next to you and introduce yourself to him. This is how networking works, people. Don't be the guy that just hangs it on the wall and doesn't talk to anyone. I can't tell you how true this is. I've spent years in a particular networking group, and I saw clients after 6 months of being in there, just from referrals, just from working around talking to people, understanding what their issues are. Some people don't even realize they need your services until you understand what they do. So network with these people, talk to them, understand their business. And then once you have a solid understanding of what their problems are, you can start applying your services to their solutions. And then you can tell them what their benefits are. So before I get to questions, I'm Nick Jubrey. That got screwed up. That's cool. The freelance space, the freelance.space/WC Toga has all these slides and links to the different pieces of software that we mentioned. And then sign up because it is under construction, and when that launches, I'll let everybody know. So, anybody have any questions?
How do you handle RFPs? Or do you even deal with them, or do you say RFPs is not my niche, because you mentioned about
Right. So the question is, how do I deal with or how do I handle RFPs? I spend a lot of time going through every piece of how I want to handle a client. So if I get an RFP, a lot of the things that I put in place kind of already handle those. One of the things that you can do is just say, this is how we do it. And maybe you don't need one of those. A lot of those things are written by people who, you know, it was written a long time ago. They don't even know what's on them. They don't even know what to expect from it. So I asked them to try to work with me. And then, I mean, is that somebody that I really want to work with? Everything is geared to how I develop. I'm offering you the service. This is how my service works. If I really want to work with them at that point, for whatever the reason, then I'll go through it and I'll work with them to try to make it work out for the best of us. Does that answer your question? Yeah.
you basically, what I think I'm hearing is that you try to pull them forward to how you do your workflow, as opposed to
Right.
how they set up.
Yeah, and right. I do try to say this is how I do it, right? So think about the mechanic, the plumber thing. So you call a plumber up and you're like, so my toilet is doing this. This is how you're going to fix it. No, that's not how I'm going to fix it. As a matter of fact, I'm going to leave. And I'm still going to charge you because you made me show up here. And that was part of my contract. See how I worked the contract thing back in there? So it's your service.
Right now, my interest is trying to figure out a way to not rely so much on income from projects that have a beginning and an end. Do you have any thoughts on whether it's a good idea to offer a retainer or maybe another way to market your services that's not dependent on the client's time?
So the question is, I'm going to kind of switch it up a little bit. Is there other ways to make money besides just doing a project beginning to end? Is a retainer a good idea? That pretty much sums it up. Yeah, it's a great idea. Let me ask you this question. If you start a project with a client and you finish it, do you speak to that client again?
Yeah.
When?
Often it's like a longer term relationship where they encounter some other issue and they come back to us.
Yeah. And then you charge them an hourly rate?
No, we usually do another project, like another contract.
A whole nother, yep.
We haven't really done retainers because we found that our time isn't as valued
Mm-hmm.
when we're offering retainers.
Okay.
Yeah.
You found that your time doesn't add value in offering. Okay. So think about all the times that you get a call from a client and you're like, oh, fix this, pixel this, I need this, add this product that you don't charge for or you don't get paid for, right? I have a couple of different tiers that make sense to me. I have a ticketed help desk that I charge on a monthly retainer. When we get done and this project is over and the 90 days of the warranty of this project are up, and I do have a 90-day warranty, software changes, I have to reinvest time into making it work. $250 a month is a good number to start out if you're a single person running a business. You can email us, one person can email us, one person can call us, and then we can work on issues. And then you double that if you want, to add or adjust things. I want to be able to add something to my e-commerce site, or I have some new whatever it is that I want to add on there. So yeah, I absolutely do that. I do that with my SEO clients also. If they want to have something that moves on into the future, because if anybody does any SEO work, you can't just do it once and then you're done. Right? You need to develop a relationship with them. So yes, I do have retainers that I offer. And some clients, especially if I'm doing the tiered price options, are like, well, they see what it's going to cost to do the project that I asked for, and then I add all the options in that I think that they should have. And I'm already in that tier that I know that they're going to be okay with because we've already spoken about it. And then they'll look at it and go, that's not really that good of an idea. But then when they call a little later on and they're like, we need these changes made, they say, okay, I have an hourly rate. It's what I base everything else on is how much money I need to make. So I have an hourly rate. I just don't charge by the hour. But at that point, I'll say, okay, this is what our hourly rate is. It may be better if we're going to have these changes to do this into the future, because sometimes I might work a little harder one month, but another month I might not. So it really balances itself out. So I work retainers into everything. And if it doesn't, I try to sell it to them later on.
Nick, it sounds like you struggled for 4, 5, 6 years until you developed a process.
Yes.
I'm assuming that your numbers are much higher than what you talked about in the initial of what you're doing. Is that correct? So has this change of operation long term significantly increased your income?
Yes. The question is, have the changes that I've made and what I've spoken about increased my income? Yes, it has. The more I learned, the faster I was able to make it happen, the more I charged. There's a good rule of thumb. Anybody ever heard of Paul Jarvis? Okay, look up Paul Jarvis, especially if you do this kind of work. He's a really brilliant guy. If he's booked for 2 months solid, and he still has people that are looking to work with him, he raises his rates. Because it's obvious that he's in that high of a demand. I mean, it's supply and demand. It's just based on your service. Yes, I have raised my rates. My hourly rate currently is 4 times what it was when I started.
Do you have, like, in your contract or wherever that you'll get back to a client within X number of hours or days, or are you available all the time?
So the question is, do I have it in my contract on when I will get back to my client and hours or days, and am I available all the time? I'm not available all the time. I work within my business hours. If you email a client on a Sunday, they're going to expect that you work every Sunday. If you work on Sunday, that's great. But if you don't, they're going to expect that. And that's going to happen on a regular basis. I actually have the opposite of that. I have in my contract, my contracts actually work, and head nods if you've had this experience. Getting content from a client is probably the worst experience that you could possibly have, right? So how do you fix that? That was a big one. So the last time I reworked it, I have 6 steps, so 7 steps total. The way I handle my payment structure and the way that I handle the work that I get to, my projects actually stop at the content stage. That's about halfway, and I've been paid up until, if not more, at that point. and then I say to my client, this is what we need, fill this out, and then I'm done. So it's really set up for them to be able to then do the work, and I'm not overly invested in it. I'm not going to lose money in it. That also gives me the opportunity to say, do you need copywriting service, right? So we have a timeline. It's about 3 months that we usually take to do a project, 3 to 4 months it takes to do a project. And then I tell my clients, if you want to stay within there, then I need you to respond within 2 business days. And then you can even, I know some designers that also offer, if you respond within 2 business days on everything, I'm going to give you 10% off at the end to kind of help expedite that. They also charge an extra 10% when they start. Okay? I mean, it's one-on-one, really. So, no, I'm not available all the time, regular business hours. I'm sorry, I've seen your hand up a couple of times. Are you yelling at me, or?
No.
Okay, you have a question?
In fact, it's 10:35.
Okay, great.
So going along with the idea of a retainer, and I was kind of, what was my question? So, going back to the first step, the project.
Mm-hmm.
So, you said something about what was it, a guarantee, or what was it, satisfaction? I don't know exactly what you said, but how do you define in your contract, like how many changes you'll make before, like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Yep. It really depends on how you work your project. The question is, how do I define how many iterations or changes I'm going to make in a project? My clients know what they do really well, and especially when I'm working with my niche clients, I know what they do really well because I'm invested. I know what they want. I know what the industry looks like. I know where we're going with it. And I have a designer that's going to make it happen because it's not going to be me. It could be me, but it would take a really long time. So I tell them in my contracts there's 1 iteration of changes. And by iteration, I mean like actual, like I'm making some serious changes. So what I do is I have a creative meeting. That's my initial meeting with the client. That gets them thinking. That's more for them. Talking about the kind of stuff that they like, the stuff that they want. Make sure they don't have another designer. Having another designer come in on a project that's not you is a fireable offense, and that should be written into your contract. And I've learned that from somebody else. You're the only one. So keep that in mind, because that will turn into a nightmare. Well, my cousin does interior design, and she thinks there should be more pink kittens on the site. Right? You don't want to deal with that. But from the creative design, I go to the functionality, and we talk about how the website needs to work. From there, we usually develop the sitemap, what the navigation is going to look like, and then we can do some mood board concepts if I feel like that client can understand what mood board concepts are and work through it, and not write a mood board and have them go, oh, I don't think that should be there, or that, if they can't understand that that's not a website. Then usually what I do is I go through some wireframes, and I get the wireframes signed off on. So if they've agreed and this is what they like and this is where we're going to go from that. And from the talks that we've had before, I'll come up with a homepage design and like a level 1 design or an interior page. And then that's where we do the iterations from there. Move this here, move that there. That's how I handle that. And I usually write 1 iteration. But at that point, we know a lot about one another. I know what they're going to do. They know the kind of work that I'm going to do. And we've discussed it. It's on the table. I don't usually hand something to a client and have them go, no, that's not what I was thinking at all. Because we've already talked a lot about it up to that point. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay. I think you had a question?
I actually had 2 things, and I just forgot one. But the other one, go back to your teamwork.
Yes.
Your project management.
Mm-hmm.
Because I know you couldn't demo it, but I want to say we use it. I have 3 staff members and a network of subcontractors that we use from time to time, and it has been a lifesaver, and it has been phenomenal in terms of keeping track of everything. And we went through 4 different project management software iterations.
Different pieces of project management software?
Different kinds, different locations,
Yep.
different web-based, not web-based,
Yeah.
Windows, and teamwork. We've been in teamwork for about 18 months now and just absolutely
Yeah.
love it.
Yep.
And the chat feature that it's got where we can
Mhm.
chat with each other about projects,
Mhm.
and then you can take a chat function and add it as a task.
The integrations on Teamwork, if you want to actually put the time in to use them, they're super extensive. I keep everything in. What you would have seen, and if you want to see it later on, I can show it to you. But what you would have seen is once we copy a project, it has all the files in a Google Docs folder. that I can make a copy of in another Google Docs folder, knock it out of there, and now I have all the documents that I need for that particular client, and I don't have to edit any master documents or anything. I just have to fill in the blanks. So I mean, that's a lot of different stuff. I'm adding dates and client names. That's it. And it's great for all those different pieces.
I remember it was going back to the scheduling and the timing. Our contracts are written so that we get paid at milestones as well.
Mhm.
And by the time a design is complete, we've got at least 50% of payment. We then have written it, we start developing beta site from there, and we have written in it that if the client is more than 3 weeks overdue on providing their information to us, we have the right to bill for the beta site.
Mhm.
And we never, I don't usually, because it's like, it's coming. But what we've also done is we tell our clients, we meet our dates if you meet your dates.
Mhm.
If you do not meet your dates, you get pushed to the bottom of the pile, and when your material comes in, we will put you back into the schedule where we can pay you.
Yep. And you've had the lawyer look at your contract, or you have one on staff.
I do not have a lawyer on staff.
Okay, but you've had one look at your contract.
I have a lawyer whose
Yep.
office now is actually across the hall from me.
Okay.
So yes.
Yes.
My father was an attorney, so
Right.
he wrote the original contract.
Right. So, I mean, it really wasn't a question, more of a statement about how we work with the contracts and the things that we have in there. They really protect you for, I can stop in the middle of a project. And if my client is done on the one part that gets us hung up, and it's also in our contract, if you fell off the face of the earth, I can bill you for the full price. It's also written in that I can just charge the credit card that you gave me and charge you for the full price. I don't normally do that, but it's in there.
We don't do it often either.
Right.
But
But
it's in there in
right.
case somebody gets real tested.
Yep. And then, I mean, not for nothing, if all my clients just stopped at the content stage, they're already invested, so they're going to come back at some point. They are on the bottom of the list, and they know that it's in the contract, and we've spoken about it already. Yeah. Good points.
So let's say you're doing like an e-commerce site or whatever. Do you provide the client with a PDF or something on how to use the site and update it after the fact, or do you make it so they have to come back to you or somebody else to learn how to use the website?
Yeah, so the question is particularly with e-commerce, do I leave the client with something so they know how to use the website? Or do I make them come back to me? I would love if they came back to me, but I don't have time to chase all that down. So usually what I do is I work in a training session. And if it's an e-commerce site, I have the e-commerce person do the training session. But then what I'll do is I'll go back and I'll look at the things that I've done on a regular basis, and I do them over and over again. That was one of the slides that we went over. Then I'll do screenshots and I'll make videos. And I have a couple of dummy sites that I'll say, here's how you do this. I use Box for storage, Box.com. I have clients that don't know how to use it, and they just send me emails of pictures and documents, and I'm like, yeah, how do I stop this? Because they don't know how to use it. So I made a video. It took me 2 minutes. I posted it to YouTube, and I sent them the link to it. So I have a training session at the end so they understand how to do it. And then I'll usually do like how-to videos, or if it's a client I work with regularly, I do like a screencast from my own machine to tell them how to do it. I don't want my clients to feel like they're hooked to me. I want them to feel like they should come back to me. Right? That makes sense. If the client calls me up and like, hey, I just forgot how to do this, that's fine. I'll help you out with it. If it's, hey, I need you to do this, that's another thing.
What's the name of the project management site you use?
Teamwork? Yep.
One last question. As far as communication with clients, you send out a weekly review of what you've done, what needs to happen with the client, or you just constantly talk with them on an ongoing basis, so you don't need to do an update?
Mm-hmm. So the question is, how do I communicate with my client about where we're at on the project, and how does that timeline work? Email sucks. If I can get my client on a Slack channel, that's awesome. I mean, that's great. I try to work with one person in that company. So if I have the guy who's signing the check but has no creative ambition or doesn't have any interest in the site, just knows that it needs to be done, I find the person in that business who's going to be responsible for working with the site, and I try to just work with them. Because if you try to work with 10 people on one project, it turns into a nightmare pretty fast. So I try to stay on Slack, but one of the things that Teamwork can do is you can let people in with a non-administrative role, and they can see all the pieces, so I can assign it. So all the pieces that I have laid out, I can leave open for a client and then just go in and add who that client is, and then they'll automatically get emailed, and they'll get a regular email. So I automate that process out of there. If they're completely hands-off, they're probably a smaller project, and I'll just email them the pieces that I need, but they understand at what stage everything needs to happen because that's written out in the proposals.
Can I also follow up on that? One of the things we do is phone conversations with clients. We always send an email confirmation of the conversation because we learned early on some people remember things selectively or.
And also with meetings, same thing. I take a couple of notes during a meeting, and then I say, just to recap our meeting, this is where we're at. Here's what you're responsible for. Here's what I'm responsible for right now.
Bulleted lists. People like
Yep, I like to write bulleted lists too. That say you're responsible for this. How we doing on time? We done? We have 5 minutes?
Yeah, I guess.
5 minutes. Anybody got any important questions?
Well, you specialize in SEO.
I do.
correct?
Yep.
I know a local company that said they're going to get out of using WordPress because of the SEO issue, and I'm kind of new to this, so does WordPress inherently have some challenges with SEO?
No. Does anybody want to disagree with that? Because I'd be happy to.
I think without anything installed, it does.
Yes.
But all clutter.
If you know what you're doing, then WordPress is fine. Yep, absolutely. I can show you some sites that rank super high that are all on WordPress.
And does anybody have an SEO plugin that they recommend?
That was easy.
Are there any other plugins?
For SEO? Yoast. All-in-one is another one that you could use. Here's my thing with Yoast. The guy that runs that place is super serious about it. He's regularly creating content. He's doing regular updates. He's making it easier and easier to use. It works really well. And when it breaks, they fix it. It's like, okay, here it is. You got to keep up on your plugins and stuff like that. But site speed is another one. Especially if your themes are inherently slow, site speed is definitely something that you want to keep up on.
For speed optimization, do you do like server, do you tend to do more server-side caching stuff, or?
Okay, so the question is, for speed, do I do server-side stuff or caching? It really depends on it. I run a dedicated server myself, so my server's pretty well cleaned up as far as that goes. I also use some CDNs for clients where it's necessary, and then I've experimented with a few plugins. I don't want to plug it because I haven't really used it yet, but I'm hearing a lot of really good things from WP Rocket. It's a premium one. W3 Total Cache works well if you're ready to invest yourself in the time that it takes to make sure it didn't just destroy your entire site on your way to your vacation and you're fixing it in the car. And you're making your wife drive and she's super mad. Okay? I don't want to say anything bad about it, but I'm just saying there's a lot to it. Anybody else? Awesome. Well, I'm here all day. If anybody's got any questions or they want to see how quick it is to update that, give me a holler. I appreciate your time. Thanks.